Welcome dear learners. This lecture on kinship and religion has taken social institutions such as kinship, marriage, family, religion and culture as conversational for the whole lesson as means of understanding society. Dear learners, the whole session is divided into an introduction, types of kinship, kinship groups, functions of kinship, kinship and religion, an overview, India and its religious pluralism and approaches to kinship and religion in India. It is also important to emphasize that to understand the nexus between society and culture, one must know what makes kinship stronger in a culture as well as in society. The reason is that the lifestyles of a community or society may be understood by receiving the resources through the traditions which constitute the whole knowledge system of a community. It further reveals all its lifestyles through its social institutions. Shall we now go to the topic? Dear learners, as objectives of this lecture, learners will enable to understand kinship in social institutions, to discuss kinship and religion with relation to culture, also to understand the various views of kinship in relation to religion expressed by scholars. Kinship system refers to a group of individuals who are recognized as relatives by virtue of a blood or marriage relationship. According to the Dictionary of Sociology, the kinship system encompasses both fictitious and real genealogical ties. These relationships result from social interaction and are acknowledged by society. The system of kinship is one of the fundamental social institutions. Kinship is ubiquitous and in the majority of societies serves a crucial role in the socialization of individuals and the maintenance of group cohesion. It is of utmost importance in primordial societies and influences nearly all of their activities, whether social, economic, political or religious. In terms of social relationship, the family, marriage and kinship are all closely interconnected. Kinship is ubiquitous and one of the most fundamental social institutions. The method of kinship provides the foundation for social relationships. Kinship refers to a person's relationship with other family members based on either marriage or biological ties. These ties are of fundamental importance in every society in the globe because they are so strong. Kinship relations refer to the husband, wife, son, daughter, brother, sister and brother, sisters relationships resulting from either a marriage or a familial relationships. Kinship is the aspect of culture through which biological, marital and adoptive relationships are socially recognized. According to Murdoch, it is a structured system of a relationship in which individuals are connected through intricate, interlocking and branching connections. According to Radcliffe Brown, the kinship system is a component of social structure and the study of kinship as a field of rights and responsibilities is essential. According to Robin Fox, kinship is merely the relationship between kin or individuals related by real, putative or fictitious consanguinity. The kinship system refers to a group of individuals recognized as relatives either through a blood relationship, which is technically known as consanguinity, or through a marriage relationship, which is known as affinity. The majority of us view as natural the familial structure into which we are born and raised. Certain close relatives will seem natural and appropriate as marriage and sexual companions to us, and we are confident that any violation of these taboos will have disastrous consequences. Similarly, we may find it natural for certain categories of people to be preferred as marriage companions, or we may find it extremely unnatural for anyone to be so designated. Dear learners, let us see the types of kinship. Affinal relationship and consanguineal relationship. There are two types within that kinship. Let us look the first one, affinal relationship. The marriage bond is termed affinal. A person establishes relationship not only with the girl he marries, but also with a number of members of the girl's family upon marriage. Moreover, not only the person who marries becomes tied to the girl's family members, but also his family members become bound to the girl's family members. Thus, a multitude of relationships are created when a couple marries. The next one is consanguineous kinship. The relationship between blood relatives is known as consanguineous kinship. The consanguineous kin are those related by blood, while the affinal kin are those related by marriage. Consanguineous is the relationship between parents and their children, between parents and their children, between parents and their children, and between siblings. Now we will move to the kinship groups. The importance of kinship relationships for the transmission of family status and property from one generation to the next is comparable to the next is the significance of an effective social group for the purposes of cooperation and conflict. In order to obtain these advantages, it is necessary to determine one's ancestry or trace one's relationships. For tracing one's relationships, it is necessary to trace the descent line according to the rules of descent. And for this, an individual must comprehend in kin groups, which the family is the smallest social unit consisting of a group of individuals who share blood ties and live together. It is the line of common progenitors descendants, primarily from the unilateral, means male line or female line descent group. Clan or siblings is also a unilateral descent group that views itself as the descendant of common ancestor. However, the common ancestor of a clan is typically a fictitious figure. People with comparable lineages are aware of their actual common ancestor, but those with similar clans are unaware of their actual ancestor. The next element is phratry. The phratry consists of two or more lineages of a group of unilateral descent. Moiety. It is the largest kinship group, which is the other half of a social group formed by dividing a society based on descent. Considering the extent of the kinship, the group, the preceding social groups are described in descending order, with family being the smallest and moiety being the largest. Functions of kinship. Kinship establishes the rules that regulate the relationship between relatives. It also establishes a socially acceptable role for familial relationships, such as those between father and daughter, sibling and sister, etc. It establishes familial relationships such as clan and lineage. It establishes norms for marital relationships and determines who can or cannot marry whom. It outlines the rights and responsibilities of the members in all religious practices from birth to mortality. It aids in maintaining harmonious relationships. It also determines the rights and responsibilities of establishing families, conducting marriages and distributing political authority in tribal regions. Usage-based kinship defines a behavioral pattern and assigns rules for interactions between two individuals. It defines a system for identifying relatives using as their usage of kinship terms. The importance of kinship in establishing a unique group of kin through usages. It facilitates succession and property transmission to descendants. It regulates an individual's social existence. Kinship and religion as an overview. Sociologists and anthropologists study people of regions that have not yet experienced the complete effects of industrial revolution. These individuals continue to derive the majority of their income from the food they cultivate, the animals they herd and foraging and gathering. They anticipate that the place where they were born will be their permanent resident, and they rely on the assistance of kin and neighbors. The terms are frequently interchangeable to achieve the essential tasks of goals their lives. One may wonder why a serious scholar would research these individuals. This query can be answered in a number of ways, one of which is that one cannot critically evaluate or even comprehend his own culture until he has experienced something very different. The novelist Somerset Maugham remarked that he did not begin to comprehend the English language until he travelled abroad. For the sociologist who spends several years with the non-industrial people living in close relationship with the fundamental conditions of human existence, an experience that has not been conceivable in the Western world for many generations, modern society takes on a new perspective. Otherwise impossible, he gains an appreciation for the institution of his own society. In light of this, I wish to examine certain aspects of kinship and religion, industrial and non-industrial societies. Dear learners, numerous Indian societies were structured on the basis of kinship by the scholars. The political, economic and religious institutions were founded upon kinship ties based on bloodlines or marriage. Membership in a kin group determined succession to political and religious positions, ownership and inheritance of property, and even who one could or could not marry. Intricate regulations governed marriages, in-law relationship and post-marriage residence in Indian kinship system, which comprised a multitude of forms. In patrilineal societies, in most of the Indian society, land use privileges and political membership were inherited from the father. In matrilineal societies, for example, Khasi tribe of Northeast India, membership is determined by the mother's family lineage. In the Algonquian speaking communities of Eastern North America, sibling and cousin relationships determined group membership. The nuclear family consisting of a husband, wife and their offspring was less important to many Indians than the extended family or lineage. On the Northwest Pacific coast, a male, his wife or wives and their children, or the man's sister's son, comprised a household. The extended household comprised a group of female relatives and their spouses, son-in-law and maternal grandchildren, and was the center of social and economic organization among the Western pueblo. For example, from Iraqian speakers of the eastern woodlands, the longhouse, a large rectangular structure containing approximately 10 families, was the fundamental social unit. Many European colonists considered Indian religions to be a type of superstition. Indian religions possessed great subtlety and sophistication as evidenced by a rich ceremonial life, an intricate mythology and profound speculations about the creation of the universe, the origin of life and the nature of the afterlife. They were not primitive forms of religion. Native American religions, unlike Islam, Christianity and Judaism, were not written religions with specific progenitors. They could also be termed mystical religions because they permitted direct contact with the supernatural through visions and dreams. Despite vast differences in ritual practices and customs, Native American religions shared certain characteristics, most notably an outlook that could be described as animistic. This is the belief that humans, creatures and the natural environment are interconnected and must coexist in harmony. Two dominant modes of Native American religious expressions have been identified by scholars, that is hunting and horticultural religions. The hunting tradition was distinguished by its emphasis on the human-animal relationship, instituting rituals and taboos for the treatment of wild animals so as not to offend their spiritual matters. In many hunting societies, a shaman or medicine man or woman was able to communicate with supernatural beings on behalf of the group. The agrarian tradition emphasized fertility, celebrating it annually with a series of rituals designed to promote rainfall and crop yield. Unlike the hunting tradition, which tended to emphasize a single masculine deity, the agrarian tradition featured a greater number of gods and goddesses. Agricultural societies also tended to have a priesthood and permanent temples or sanctuaries, in contrast to the less complexly organized hunting societies. Now we will move to the India and its religious pluralism. India is a secular country comprised of numerous world religions that are further subdivided into numerous sects and organizations. Diverse religious beliefs and practices characterized India's religious landscape. 4 world religions were born on the Indian subcontinent, such as Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism, and Jainism. Additionally, Hinduism variants such as Vaishnavism, Shaivism, etc. are practiced. Even within Islam, there are multiple variants such as Shia and Sunni doctrines. Tribal communities also adhere to animistic and naturalistic religions. Consequently, there are numerous religions, and each religion has its own central tenets, festivals, and customs. Now, the point of approaches to kinship and religion in India, sociological studies have utilized textual sources to explain the ideological and juridical basis of our institutions, as the social institution of Indian society are founded in literary and learned tradition. K.M. Kapadia uses classical texts to characterize Hindu kinship. For instance, P.H. Prabhu's Hindu Social Organization in 1954 also based on Sanskrit texts. Airavati Karve, her work 1940, 43 and 44 and finally 58, and G.S. Gurye 46 and 55 have also conducted extensive research on the Indian kinship system. Both have utilized textual sources to explain the socio-historical context of kinship patterns in various regions of India. The Indian approach to the study of genealogy has therefore provided a framework for comprehending the system's elements of continuity and change. In our society, kinship serves to establish distinct corporate social entities. Each of us is a member of this cooperative and tightly knit group of individuals. One can rely on the assistance and support provided by such individuals. Such cooperating local groups are always larger than simple families consisting of a married couple and their offspring. When these groups are recognized or defined based on a common ancestry, anthropologists as well as sociologists refer to them as descent group. Formally speaking, there are 6 ways for parents to pass on their descent group membership to their offspring. Let us take a brief glance at it. Patrilineal. Patrilineal, where descent is traced in the male line from father to son. Matrilineal, where descent is traced in the female line from mother to daughter. Another one, double, duolineal or bilineal, where descent is traced in both the father's line as well as the mother's line for different attributes such as movable property in one line and immovable in another. Cognatic, bilateral, where attributes are transmitted equally through both parents. Here, it is impossible to form unilineal groups, but cognatic group structure is possible, that is, the group of kin on the father's and mother's sides. Membership can be obtained through either the father or the mother. Parallel descent. Parallel descent is an extremely uncommon form of descent in which descent lines are sex specific. Men transmit to their sons, whereas women transmit to their daughters. And finally, the cross or alternative type descent, also extremely uncommon. Men transmit to their daughters while women transmit to their sons. In India, patrilineal and matrilineal descent systems are prevalent. The patrilineal system is the more common of the two. The descriptions and analysis of kin relationships within a dozen group have provided us with a fairly comprehensive sociological understanding of certain types of Indian kinship systems. For instance, E.K. Ghow discussed the unity of the lineage in relation to corporate lands right. She has focused on the roles and interrelationships within extended kinship. T.N. Madan investigated the function of kinship as an organizing principle in Kashmiri Brahmin society, was published in 1965. He has revealed the strong patrilineal ideology that characterizes the Kashmiri Pandit family structure. Sociologists such as A.Z. Mayer, T.N. Madan and Asghar Lewis have utilized the descent method when investigating kinship organization in North India. They have described in depth the various levels and activities of kinship groups. Alliance is another concept that features prominently in the study of kinship systems. Consideration of the patterns and regulations of marriage is component of kinship. When a sociologist pays particular attention to these aspects of kinship, we say that he or she is using the alliance approach to comprehend kinship patterns. Numerous studies of kinship in India have emphasized marriage as an alliance between two groups and kinship terminology as a reflection of the nature of the alliance. Louis Dumont is main advocate of this approach. His works from 1950 to 1966 in South India, he has emphasized the importance of marriage in sphere of kinship. Louis Dumont has made a significant contribution to our understanding of the kinship system in India in general and South India in particular by illustrating the opposition between consanguines and affines as reflected in the Dravidian kinship terminology. He has applied a structural theory of kinship to South India. It reveals the recurrence of intermarrying throughout the generations. This pattern emphasizes the separation of relatives into parallel and cross relatives. Marriage is the primary means which new kinship connections can be established. However, there is a fundamental distinction between North and South India in this regard. Generally speaking, a family in the South attempts to strengthen existing kinship ties through marriage. In contrast, families in the North tend to associate with a distinct group of individuals to whom they are not already connected. The majority of Dravidian speaking people in South India use a system of kinship terms associated with closer marriage. All lines of descent are divided into two groups, those with whom one may marry and those with whom one may not. According to Mandelbaum, the structure of Dravidian kinship terminology can be deducted from a few postulates, the most important of which is that siblings should marry. Cross cousins of the opposite sex, a man's mother's brother's daughter and typically also his father's sister's daughter, are referred to as prospective or potential spouses. All potential partners are by extension cross cousins. Periodically, marriages within the circle of kin enhances cooperation among relatives. In this lecture, we have discussed different aspects of social institution of family, marriage and kinship with religious connection. All three concepts are interrelated and form the very core of any community or society. We could define these concepts and describe their salient features. Also, in this unit, we have outlined the significance and functions of kinship in relation to religion and culture. I hope you all enjoyed the session and that it enriched your knowledge on kinship and religion. Dear learners, we will meet on another schedule. Thank you and all the best.